right. Now I am pleased to welcome back a great handicapper and NFL contest winner in Brady Cannon, a writer for the PGA Tour at Golf Bet. And Brady, man, we are dead late into the NFL season. I think we're kind of rounding the corner here. I'm so happy to have you on. I've been waiting to bug you. It's just been such a crazy October, but here you are. You have so much going on. You can follow Brady at Las Vegas Golfer, by the way. How the heck you doing this week, Brady?
I'm doing great, Kiev. Good to be with you again. Yeah, it's been, I think I know last year we saw each other before the season started. We did a little bit there at Circa, signing up for contests and all that stuff. And I believe I've seen you one time in between, but I think this is kind of the first time we've really gotten together and talked shop on football this season.
Yeah, that's right. It's right. And there's a long list, but you're on one of the top. It's just been such a busy football season. We talked about the U.S. Open with Patrick Gates earlier in the summer. That was a lot of fun. And here we are again, and golf's going to be ramping up after the Masters. But you've been busy yourself doing all kinds of stuff. Sports Grid, writer at the PGA Tour, man. You're really all over the place these days.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I still have my regular golf job here in Las Vegas that I've done for 25 years, making tee times for people. Yeah, I'm on Sports Grid just about every day of the week, and sometimes more than once. And not only talking golf, but obviously NFL football as well. And then, the PGA Tour, I started there in March, writing for their betting division called Golf Bet. And I write a couple of columns for them every week. And now this week, the last week of the fall series, if you will, and then 2024 season will begin in January. So I'll have a few weeks off here before golf ramps up again in 2024. But definitely keeping me busy, Kiev. And you know how it is during football season, man. I mean, there aren't many days off, no matter what. So.
No, there's not, my friend. And we have a full slate of games here. And especially with the other sports popping up, I just tell people don't do everything, do what you can, and don't stress over it, because if you try to do too much, you become not as good at anything. It's taking too much on. So, but that's, what we like to preach here, but you've always been great in the NFL. So thanks for coming on. But, before we get into our NFL slate of games, I always like to ask value questions because, people are curious on what teams might be kind of on the way up and on the way down. So I guess just you can do one or two, however you feel. Give me two teams that are undervalued in the marketplace, maybe right now up to this date, and maybe two teams that are overvalued for the next few weeks.
Well, I'm going to go one better and give you maybe like 2.5 or 3. I'll start with the undervalued teams, and at the top of my list is the Houston Texans. It seems like week in and week out, my numbers tell me that this is a play on team, and I have been on them. I was on them last week. I didn't expect them to beat the Bengals outright. I thought there was a chance, but I was certainly on them plus the 6.5. I think I actually got 7 earlier in the week, but this team, they throw the ball downfield a lot with CJ Stroud, yet he rarely turns it over. Their offensive line has been really good in pass protection, giving him the time to throw. I think there's, something to the coaching as well. I think D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slowick have been fantastic. They both come over from the 49ers, and that mojo is kind of carried over. I think that gives them a push as well. I think as far as I can tell, these guys are doing a tremendous job because, they seem to have, at least the last couple of weeks, they've had a laundry list of injuries, and it doesn't matter. It seems they have the stigma of being the Houston Texans, but they continue to exceed their reputation, if you will. I actually bet them to win the division, Kiev, before they beat Cincinnati last week. I got them at plus 650, and now they're down to plus 250. So maybe that's an indication that the market is catching up. But again, my numbers say that they're a play against Arizona this week too, and we've seen that line creep up. So, it's funny to wonder why maybe they're still undervalued. And it seems like it's maybe just that stigma. They're the Texans, they're perennially bad, it seems. But But no, this team's pretty good. And I think they have a heck of a shot to win the division. They have an easier schedule from here on out than do the Jacksonville Jaguars. So
Right.
they're one of my teams for sure. The next team is the Chicago Bears. You know, as weird as that is to say, they have been sneakily improving over the last few weeks here. Their defense has become a lot better. They're very good in stopping the run. They have a good running game on offense. And now they get Justin Fields back, you know, to even boost that running game even further. Tyson Bagent was okay. You know, he kept the ship together, won a couple games, also made a lot of mistakes. But meanwhile, while he was kind of just holding things together, the defense was getting better. They're still the Chicago Bears. I still have them well below average. They still don't look good in the win and loss column. But I think for a couple weeks here, you might be able to find some value on this team, especially if they keep losing games. I think you're going to continue to see the market undervalue them. You know, I think they're a play this week. I mean, the numbers come down now to like 7.5 against the Lions, but I thought 9 or 10 was way too high. And they're probably going to lose this game to the Lions. And if it's not incredibly competitive, you might continue to get value on the Chicago Bears. And then finally, the Minnesota Vikings. You know, it's a weird scenario here where you've got this team having won 5 in a row and you feel like the bottom's going to fall out eventually. And, you know, let's not get too excited about this team. And you know how that goes, you know, what comes up must go down. But again, the numbers continue to say that this is a play on team like the Texans. Now it's going to be a very interesting test this week in Denver because that team is rapidly improving as well. I still don't think they're very good. We saw on Monday night, they were gifted 4 turnovers. They still struggled on offense. The defense is certainly improving. They are on the upswing for sure. They're not a great team yet. And Minnesota, even with the loss of Cousins, they've continued to exceed expectations. So weird dynamic here with that game. But Minnesota is a team that, because of probably the change at quarterback, I think they're probably still being a little bit undervalued as well.
No, I love it. Makes total sense. I agree, and I've been riding the Texans for a long time, and I kind of wonder if they've peaked or anything yet. But I was on them +8, goes to +6.5. I'm happy, but then I'm thinking to myself, the way the NFL's been going, I'll lose this by 10, right? The NFL's been a little crazy, but no, the Texans have been a wonderful team to bet on, especially as a dog. You know, it's funny. I put the Packers, and it's weird. I know Jordan Love's not that great. And I know this team has some issues with injuries on defense, but when Jari Alexander comes back, I just think that it's weird to see the Packers +7.5 next week against the Lions and the Bears +17.5 this week against the Lions. I still, even though the Bears are a little bit underappreciated in the market, I still think they're a point or two worse than the Packers. It's just kind of strange to see that. Now they're dogs against the inconsistent Chargers team by 3 points here at home, which I find very interesting for this game. So that's going to be one of those games that could surprise people coming up this week. I also said Arizona and Carolina, and I don't mean by a ton, but Carolina's a bad team, but they've been very injured. And at this point, they just got to play for the integrity of themselves. This is a weird spot for Dallas, and I normally love betting Dallas to, you know, blow teams away, and that's what they do. They're bullies, but this might be a spot, being that Thanksgiving's kind of coming up. You know, they're off a big win from last week. You know, that they might, you know, just take it a little bit more easy here. So I'm not saying I'm betting Carolina yet. I'm considering it. You know, I'm going to wait and see how much this line goes up, because I think it does go up. And I think Carolina's just going to slow the game down and muddy it up a little bit. Burns should be back. He had a full practice as well today. Arizona, they're going to ride a Kyler Murray hype, and they rode it last week a little bit, but I think Kyler Murray kind of just is one of those guys that, you know, could just get them back in any game just with his legs, you know, in any game. So now I kind of like Arizona as a dog, but as a favorite, I'm going to stay the hell away from them if they have an opportunity to be a favorite this year. I'm not sure there's too many opportunities coming up, but I think Arizona might be a sneaky dog in a few places. Now, how about overvalued? I have 3 of them myself here. I'll let you go first.
Okay. Well, I started with, believe it or not, the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills, if you just look at their numbers, they still grade out quite high in a number of areas statistically, but they aren't living up to it. I think the play calling definitely became too predictable. It's lost a lot of its creativity, and the change from Brian Dable to Ken Dorsey, maybe that is just now catching up to where we're seeing that it really is a large downgrade. Last year, it didn't really seem to miss much of a beat, but now obviously Dorsey being fired, you wonder what's behind all of that. But it seems like maybe it just took a while for the change from Daboll to Dorsey to show up. And I think it has. Matt Milano, the loss on defense, I identified about a month ago that was really a bigger deal than I expected. The run defense became awful, like in a hurry for the Buffalo Bills. Now, they had a great defensive effort on Monday night, but that was kind of an outlier. Their defense has definitely been gettable since Milano left that lineup. I think, like I was talking about with the Houston Texans, where they're still perceived as the Texans, the Buffalo Bills are still perceived as the big bad Buffalo Bills who have won the division for 3 straight years. I wondered if they were going to be able to sustain that before the season started. They haven't been able to. It seems like over the last 3 years they were, and maybe they fell off just a tick last year, and now obviously they've fallen off even more. They've been hampered by injuries the past couple seasons, and now it's kind of all coming together in a bad way for the Buffalo Bills. They haven't been able to hang on to that, and the market is still kind of treating them as the big bad Buffalo Bills, but they are in no way living up to it. I have them just 1.5 points above average right now in my ratings. The second one is the Cincinnati Bengals. And this one's weird because they find ways to win. You've got Joe Burrow. I think there's a belief out there in the marketplace that this team is going to go on a run like they always seem to do in the second half of the season. They seem to always start out slow, and then the next thing you know, they're in the AFC Championship or something like that. I think this team this year is different. They do have a lot of holes on defense. We talked about it preseason. They lost 2 really good safeties, and it really hasn't changed. And they haven't been able to overcome that, it seems. Yards per play, they're bad on both sides of the ball. Yards per pass attempt, Burrow's still not throwing it downfield a whole lot. And on defense, they're giving up a lot of yards per pass attempt. They're not good on third down, and they're not very good in red zone defense either. So, again, I think reputation and past history, and that guy, Joe Burrow, is that guy. I think that keeps them a little bit elevated in the market than what truly is going on the field for this team. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Ravens win on Thursday night and win by margin and cover the spread there. They're dealing with some injuries now. Trey Hendrickson was cleared to play, but can he really be 100% on a short week on the road? Sam Hubbard is out for this game, as is T. Higgins. So you might, we saw it last week where the Texans go in there and win outright. Now, granted, that was a bad scheduling spot for Cincinnati as well, off of the Sunday night into the short week against a division opponent in the Baltimore Ravens. But I think that might have been more about the truth of this team than what a lot of people are believing. I just look at the numbers and Kiev, I didn't even believe my own numbers. So I said, okay, let's split the first half of the season and the second half of what we've, the last 4 or 5 weeks, because the Bengals have improved. The numbers don't change that much. They still do have a lot of flaws. So at the same time, they find ways to win ball games. And that's kind of like my next team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know it's been well documented. They've been outgained in every single game. They're not a very good team. You look at the game against the Tennessee Titans on Thursday night. Kenny Pickett was awful for at least half that game, sailing the ball over receivers' heads. And he comes up with a fourth quarter comeback to win it. They play awful against, they're totally dominated by the Baltimore Ravens, and they win that game. They were dominated by the Cleveland Browns, and they win that game. The Rams blow it late, and they win that game. This team,
they burned my tickets, my friend. They burned my tickets.
Oh, and I've even bet on them. I bet I was on them last week against the Packers because I'm like, even though my numbers said Packers, I'm like, I know the Steelers are going to find a way to win this because The Packers aren't that good. The Packers are a team, you talk about being undervalued. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but they're not meeting what their numbers are. The numbers say they're okay, but they continue to come up short.
They're the opposite of the Steelers.
Totally. So those are my three right there. The Steelers are a real tough one to figure out. I don't recall having seen a team like this recently where, I mean, they're 6-3 and they are improving. You know, Jaylen Warren, the running back, I think is doing a lot for this offense, giving them an explosive player out of the backfield. And the combination with he and Najee Harris seems to be working, but they're just not very good at the same time as a team. They're not great. And you know, Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think maybe one more week before he's back, but he's a difference maker as well.
Yeah. And that was going to be my next question, but I'll give you mine real quick. And I agree, the Bills were my first ones. They fired Ken Dorsey as a scapegoat for Josh Allen's mistakes. And maybe Ken Dorsey wasn't super creative, but he did learn from Daboll. So it's like, you know, it's like the team has these plays. What the heck is going on here? And teams figure it out. You got to adjust. But, man, it's also Josh Allen not using his legs. You know, Josh Allen won in his legs. He's powerful. He's very inconsistent quarterback. He's either going to blow you away or lose. And the Ravens have been like that as well. You know, and that's going to be the talk about our first quick game. But the Bills definitely, that defense and Milano, you said it all. And I've said the same thing for a few weeks. Milano's just a massive loss to them. And they're just an average team right now that is either going to, an average team that's going to lose or blow someone away. So it's really hard to bet on the Bills, in my opinion. You fade them as a favorite, maybe bet on them as a dog type situation, right? That's the only way you look at it. Saints are a little bit overvalued, I think.
Yeah,
the
Saints are an easy puzzle for me, Kiev. If they're in the position as a favorite, I'm going to bet against them, and especially if they're a road favorite. Derek Carr me too. Derek Carr and Dennis Allen are the worst quarterback and head coach record-wise as favorites, and I know as road favorites in the NFL. So but you're right. The market continues to give them that favoritism. Mm-hmm. I'm like, keep it coming, guys.
Keep it coming. And we'll see if they do. But the power ratings, like public power ratings, have them ranked 16th or 17th best team. So, yeah, they're going to get those favorite roles against some of that easy schedule that they have. So they'll be an easy fade, even with Jameis Winston so inconsistent. Denver is my other one. And now Denver tried to lose that game. It's just that the Bills outstunk them, you know, and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's getting credit for the Kansas City win. And they did do well, but this was Kansas City's like go to bed spot, you know. Patrick Mahomes threw 4 picks. They're winning because of the turnover margin. They're not going to win because good.
I agree. You know, I totally agree with you. I absolutely. They have been the beneficiary of turnovers for a couple weeks in a row here. I mean, and they still, if it wasn't for a 12th man, they still would have lost that game. I mean, which is crazy because they pretty much completely outplayed the Bills. You know, so they are. It's hard to say if they're overvalued or undervalued. I don't think they're that good. They are improving, however. They're a lot better than they were early in the season.
100%. They are better than that, but still not average. And they're getting as a favorite against Minnesota. And we'll get into that game. You know, this Steelers thing you said, and that's the obvious one, outgained in every game. What do you do as a handicapper with this team? It's like they've already burned our tickets, but the time we don't fade them, they'll just get smoked. I feel like there's all kinds of different ways of handicapping. They seem to be a bad team that has an amazing clutch gene, you know, just like they can just get to the end, they'll get the pick, they'll get the turnover, and Pankett will just luck out to Pickens or Deontay Johnson or one of his playmakers, right? I feel that's them. That's hard to handicap because it doesn't show up on metrics. It shows, the only thing it shows up on is wins and losses, and us handicappers hate wins and losses, Brady.
No, you nailed it. You're right. It doesn't really show up in the stats. It's just kind of a gut feeling you sometimes have to react on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, sometimes I think it was that way last week. My numbers said Packers, but I was like, I just don't see it happening.
Congrats on that one, because I had the hook, 3 in the hook, and that missed extra point pretty much killed me, my friend. And it made them have to go for touchdowns at the end, and they threw the pick in the end zone. Just completely getting outgained. But yeah, what do we do with them? I don't know if you stay away from them or if you just have to just suck it up and go and keep doing what your numbers say, you know?
I think you have to continue to fire against them when it looks right, and especially against a decent team. And I think this week is a perfect example. Now I know obviously Deshaun Watson is out for the Cleveland Browns, but Cleveland is a much better team than Pittsburgh.
All right,
I have Pittsburgh.
We'll go into that game as soon as we cue that baby up, because I kind of wanted you to think about those thoughts coming in to when we get those on rotation. So the first game though is what we mentioned before with the Ravens. You know, what's funny about the Ravens, Brady, is that they're similar to the Steelers in the fact that they should have, like, I lost the one survivor pick. It was a teaser and a money line parlay. I had some great line value with the Ravens, right? The Cleveland Browns are without their offensive tackle. I think, that this is a great spot for the Ravens to kind of just put it on them, and they're up by double digits. And John Harbaugh just got Lamar dancing around and fumbling and getting sacked and throwing picks. It's just like unexplainable. And then you have this spread of -3.5 here for the Ravens. My metrics don't even come close to this, like you said. My recency metrics have the Ravens by 7. My year-long metrics have the Ravens by 9 or 10. Yet This spread is 3.5, and I'm not going to bet the 3.5. And I'm not just because the Bengals are going to cover somehow. It's just one of those weird situations. It's Harbaugh that blows it, and it's like I think Ravens first half might be a good look.
Yeah, because then you take yourself out of the possible collapse that John Harbaugh is going to allow to happen. No, I'm with you. I mean, my first set of numbers came out to the Ravens -12.5. And I was like, what's going on here? And then, like I was saying earlier about the Bengals, I went ahead and took their year-long numbers and then whittled it down to just the last 3 or 4 or 5 weeks as well. And they actually don't change a whole lot. What I came out to in the end was an average number of Ravens by 8.5. I think they're going to win and cover tonight. But you're right. There's that Joe Burrow thing. There's that division game thing that tells you, buyer beware. But if this game plays out the way it should, you've got the Bengals on a short week on the road. They're banged up. The Ravens should win this game by margin in my mind. The other thing, I saw a crazy stat that I didn't know. A good follow on Twitter, Evan Abrams, who comes out with some wild trends and what have you. And some, like how it is with any trend, Kiev, you have to, it has to make sense. It can't be just random. Right. And this one, it's happened so often, you wonder what it is. The Cincinnati Bengals are 1-23 straight up on the road in night games in the last 25 years. And that includes having lost 13 in a row. And here they are in a night game on the road. I mean, when it's been that true for that long, you wonder, that's got to be a hurdle that they seem to have trouble getting over.
Was that one a playoff game against the Bills last year? Was that night or day? Maybe that was a day game.
Must have been,
Yeah. Because it's amazing.
That's just a wild stat. And in this case, I think it holds some weight because you've got these guys a little bit injured and on a short week and on the road in a very, I've heard some people kind of say that they're not liking the scheduling spot that they gave Cincinnati here, having a big time division game on a Thursday night. I kind of agree, but who cares? This is the schedule that's been put in front of you. Deal with it. And I think it's a tough spot to deal with for the Cincinnati Bengals here.
Yeah, it's very tough. And without T. Higgins, it's going to be tough. And without one of their defensive ends, now the Ravens are banged up a little bit too. But this is such a funny, I guess, experience to talk about here on this show, because this is the complete difference between a metric handicapper that loves the Ravens and like a creative division dog second game Bengal Joe Burrow handicapper, right? I mean, anyone that does metrics likes the Ravens. Anybody that kind of says, the Bengals are just going to do it because that's what's going to happen. That it's a division game. It's a massive game for them because it's division, and you have Joe Burrow, who's ranked better than Lamar Jackson, and it's almost like throw the numbers away. This is going to be a close game. So I find that just very amazing how I've seen this. Like, I've watched a lot of cappers talk about this game. The metric ones do, like with the Ravens. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm with you on that. I'm not betting it because I've been burned in this situation before, and I've actually thought that creative capping has to enter my realm a little bit more. But and I do like Joe Burrow more than Lamar by a little bit. But I understand it because I have the Ravens by 10 points. I do.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
so it's just I'm not going against that. I will not go against that because my creative size to do it. So that's kind of where I'm standing still here. Let's move on to the next game. The Cardinals against the Texans on their Betfred odds screen. Texans are -5. The total on this is 49. It almost sounded like you kind of like the Texans.
Yeah, I do. I have not played them versus the traditional point spread. I might go ahead and use them in a money line parlay or a teaser or something like that. I want to see where this number kind of settles in. But my numbers came to, I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was like 6.9, almost a 7-point favorite, 6.5, 7-point favorite is where my numbers came out on the Texans. Kyler Murray makes you think a little bit. I mean, if this was the old Cardinals, you'd probably certainly have a different spread and maybe an easier path to victory for Houston. But, Kyler was good. He looked extremely mobile. He did a great job scrambling. He ran the ball. But, is he really that much of a change for this Arizona team? I think one of the biggest things, we talked about Matt Milano for the Bills. I identified a huge change for the Arizona Cardinals with the loss of James Conner. That just completely changed the dynamic of their offense when they didn't have a running game, and it was very difficult. This team that was really scrappy, feisty, competitive for at least half a game, if not 3 quarters or more, and then finally the talent gap just came to fruition and teams started to pull away from them late in the game. All that went away when they lost James Conner. They were not competitive really at all. Now he's back, and now you have Kyler Murray. But is that going to be able to carry over for a second straight week? I think there was a real good vibe in the locker room last week with Kyler coming back and Connor coming back off of injury. And I was on the Cardinals last week, and they pulled off the outright win. Is that now going to happen on the road against certainly an upgrade of an opponent? I do lean with the Texans here, and you have to guard against, am I falling for this bandwagon stuff on Houston? No, my numbers said so. And then I saw the market, reinforce that as well. And so, yeah, I think the Texans, 5 is a weird number. You'd love to have 4 where it was earlier in the week, but it's moved to full point too. That's got to tell you something as well.
So great points. I love Houston, but I love them as a dog.
Yeah.
And I think this should be more money line for you because I think they win by 3. My problem with
I wouldn't be surprised by that at all.
Yeah, they're 0-3 as a favorite this year, and of course they could have kicked if they had a kicker, they would kick the extra point and cover the 2.5 last week, which burned me
that one kind of doesn't count. Yeah, burned everybody.
2 weeks ago, it killed me. So it's hard to count that one, but that's just kind of how they've been performing as a favorite. When a team finally becomes good, they come up sneaking on people and they're motivated as a dog. But when they're laying points, it's a weird situation for them. And they're just not ready to cover those laying type point spreads. And then, you have Kyler Murray and James Conner coming back. I think it just gives the Cardinals a little bit more faith in them. I think they kind of like their coach and Gannon. And
he's really good. I've been impressed with him, man.
As weird as that man is and his interviews and his little videos, he's been okay. He's been better than I thought.
I agree. He's been better than I thought as well. And for as bad as we all thought that team would be, I think he's overachieved so far.
He has. It's hard to put a value on Kyler Murray because you had your Josh Dobbs that we found out's a good quarterback that just had bad pieces. And then he started out pretty good and then kind of just everything they played some really rough competition. They played the Niners, they played the Eagles, they played some tough teams. It was either Dallas, they beat Dallas, but And then you got Kyler Murray. That's a little bit different because he's got a different style than Dobbs. Dobbs at least tries to pass the ball a lot. Kyler Murray will roll out and he'll take off a lot quicker. And as long as Kyler's doing that, that's when you like Kyler to cover. I think Kyler can backdoor any spread against any team, down by 10, down by whatever. He can get back into the game. And I think that's how they lose. I think that, there's probably going to be down by 10, 11 points, whatever it is. Maybe it's 24-13. And then he gets the back door, and they lose by 3 or 4 points. So I like the 5 a little bit here. I'm going to give you a lean on it though, because, you're still going against the Texans here. So slight disagreement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. We have the Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions. The Lions are -7.5. This thing crumbled. Total is 48. Now, Brady, I bet the Bears at 10.5. I saw that. I was like, you serious? Justin Fields coming back. Terrible spot for the Lions. They're in a shootout last week. Then they got Thanksgiving coming up next week. It's just one of those weird spots for the Lions. And the Bears with Fields can backdoor anybody. But at the same time, what worries me now that it's down to 7.5, and I even typed this all up. I said, Bears up by 6, Bears down by 6. Justin Fields is driving. Oh no, he gets hit by Hutchinson. He fumbles the ball, scoop and score. Lions win by 13. It's just that's what Justin Fields has been kind of doing a lot over the past couple of years. It's a frustrating thing, but I took the value. Now, to be honest with you, it's probably at a number that's pretty fair. I still think that I would bet the Lions at 7.5, but now I don't have to because we took it at 10.5.
Yeah, I actually got 9.5. You were a little bit quicker to jump on it than I was, but it's not that 9 and 10 are the same number, but we're certainly on the other side of 8, which I think is important. I don't think this is a 2-possession game or a 2-score game. I think this probably ends as a 1-score contest with the Lions coming out on top. And I also think you're right. 7.5 is probably about the right number. My power ratings came out to Detroit 8.5. And then when I ran all the stats and stuff like that, I came out with Detroit -3.5. I think 3.5 is probably too low. I think 9.5 or 10.5 is too high. So, somewhere in that 6 to 7 range is probably the right number in this game. Detroit defensively has been giving up a lot of yardage and scoring in every which way. Their defense has not been good the last few weeks. They were torched by the Ravens. They went up and down the field with the Chargers. And we talked about this in teams that are being overvalued and undervalued. The Bears, meanwhile, have been improving, and now they get Justin Fields back. So, I think the market, now it's corrected itself here, but initially when this was at 10 and even 9, I don't think the market was necessarily recognizing that the Bears have been on the uptick, and not that the Lions have been on a downswing. I think they're still a very good team. I like this club a lot. But they've gotten into some shootouts lately where they've given up some points. And like you mentioned, that back door being open with Justin Fields, I think Chicago will be able to keep this game competitive. I don't think they're going to get blown out of the water. But Lions now at 7.5 become a very good teaser play. You could kind of go both ways with this and try and middle it. You having 10.5 and now, playing Detroit in a money line parlay or a teaser. I think that's where this game is going to fall. Lions by 4 or 5 points is what I would say.
Yep. That's fair enough. I agree with that. My pure metrics have Lions by 6.9 for my algorithm. So I'm with you on that one. You're a little bit lower at the 3.5, 4, but yeah, it's the Lions really showed that bad defense last week, and that's concerning. So I can't bet them in a bad spot. This is probably a good place to play the Bears. If you're going to play them anywhere this year, you're getting them a division game, second division game that's against the same team. 7.5 past the touchdown. It's probably the best place to play him still. So we have agreement on that one. Let's move on to the Cowboys Panthers. Now, this is 10.5, and I kind of alluded to, I think the Panthers are undervalued. Am I excited to take the Panthers? No. The Cowboys beat up their bully teams and they make it look really easy, but I'm not taking the Cowboys this week either. I am neutral on this. I think that the public takes this up to 12. Maybe you get 12.5 later. I think you're just, the whole narrative on the Cowboys being bullies is just going to keep flying. And if you like the Panthers, maybe you suck it up and take them later. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm going to stay away from this game, I believe, Kiev. I can't recall off the top of my head for sure, but I'm pretty sure my average number came out to Dallas by about 12 in this game. I think I'm right in that 10 to 12 window, which is, obviously where the number is. So I didn't necessarily show an advantage there one way or another. But I don't really want to be on this Panthers team right now. I think there's a mess going on. There's been a lot of talk about Frank Reich, and he's on the hot seat. And, he changes and goes to, I think his name is Thomas Brown, if I recall. He makes a change and gives this gentleman the play calling duties. And now he's rescinding that. He's very wishy-washy, apparently, with what's going on there. I think that's probably creating distraction and division. There's probably too much mess going on right now with this team for me to feel that they can really put forth a concentrated and, ganging together in a cohesive effort. I think there might be too many moving parts in a bad way going on right now with this Panthers team. And I think Bryce Young is a long ways away from becoming a very successful quarterback in this league. I think he's a good kid. I think he's got mobility. I think he's got accuracy, but he hasn't found it yet. And I don't know if it's going to be this year. I don't see it happening anytime soon. That Dallas defense is nasty. They create a lot of turnovers. They have been a team that is beaten up on poor competition. They're kind of like the Miami Dolphins, but they're starting to find a gear too. And they should have covered against Philadelphia, if not had won that game. So this team might be catching its stride right here. And I certainly don't think the Panthers are going to be a speed bump in that process. So I'm going to stay away from this game, Kiev.
Good segue into the next game, because I'm staying away as well. Raiders at Miami. Miami's about 13.5. It looks like there's a little bit coming back on the Raiders at plus 13.5, minus 115 at Betfred. Total is 46.5. So, the same concept. Are Miami bullies? Is the Raiders really believing in Antonio Pierce? What is your thoughts on this?
Well, my numbers come to, well under the 13. I think my numbers are, I think 8 was maybe on the low end, and maybe 10 or 11 was on the high end. But I think Miami's going to roll the Raiders. You talk about the creative side versus the metrics side. I don't necessarily believe my metrics in this case because of the situation that both of these teams are really going through. You have the Dolphins going into a bye week having lost 2 out of their last 3. So I would call that a little bit of a struggle. Devon Achane is going to be back for this game. And then you have the Las Vegas Raiders going through that honeymoon period with Antonio Pierce. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Josh McDaniels is out of the building. Everybody's throwing a party, smoking cigars, and it worked. And it was a perfect scenario for it to work, with them having 2 straight games at home against the New York Giants and the awful offense of the New York Jets. So it all worked. Now it gets real. I think it's back to reality for the Raiders. They're not a very good team. They're going to face a team that went into their bye week struggling. As I mentioned, I typically like to bet on those teams coming out the other side, because the bye gives them a time to pause and reset and figure out what wasn't working. I think Mike McDaniel and company will get that done for Miami. I think they'll run all over the Raiders with Achane back. I haven't bet this game, and I might find a way to bet it. But what you said about the buyback happening at 13, that makes sense with the numbers. I talked about the analytics, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins won this one by 20 points.
This reminds me of what you had last week. Worst quarterback in DeVito, but the Cowboys were 17-point favorites, 17.5, 18, and they covered it easily. Yeah. Even with the 2 backdoor touchdowns that affected the total last week. But it's the same. I have the Raiders metrically by 8.5, but I pounded the Dolphins at 9.5. Right on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right on Sunday.
I think anything. Some people will tell you anything under 14 is a good play, and I'm not necessarily going to argue. But
Oh,
numbers
this is
wise,
going to be a contest play at 13.5. I'm still going to go way against my metrics because
good
you're
for
right.
you. Good for you.
The
I'm
creative
not doubting you,
handicap,
buddy.
the
Yeah.
creative handicap has been so important. And the NFL with now a 17 game schedule and these men hitting themselves at full speed, you have to just take a leak out. Like you saw the Lions at the Ravens. They're like, well, do I have to go get beat up against the Ravens? The Lions kind of gave that game away. Seattle did the same thing at the Ravens. This is going to be the same situation because they're in a letdown spot. They beat the Jets. They beat 2 spreads. Now everyone's partying and happy with Pierce. And I agree,
Oh, yeah.
he's a better coach. He probably should be the head coach next year, and hopefully they won't make that stupid mistake like they did before and not hire the interim coach that did great and got them into the playoffs.
Right.
But it's just a spot where Miami is powerful on offense. They are rested from the bye. They need to get things right. You have a rookie quarterback in Aiden O'Connell over there that's overperformed, and I like him, and maybe he's got a shot to be a starter. He didn't look like that at Purdue, but maybe.
No. Well,
maybe,
I mean, look at him against the Chargers and even against the Jets. He didn't do much,
No, he didn't have to.
I mean, yeah, the Raiders won that game. They covered the spread. But they didn't look that good. They made some great plays defensively. They have been improved defensively this year, but I think it's 4. I can't remember exactly where I have I think I still have them about 3 or 4 points below average, and I think that's going to show up this week.
I think so too. Chargers, Packers, and the Packers are +3 home dogs. Total is 44. I mean, as a Bears fan, I love seeing the Packers in our boat finally for the first time in what, about 40 years or something. Since my 1980s days of watching the Bears with McMahon and Peyton and all those great guys. But now it's just been too much hell watching Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers over the years, and I'm enjoying this. At the same time, the Packers are a little undervalued, I think, but they can't put it in the end zone. The Chargers, there's no way I would lay points with them on the road, but I am telling you what I'm going to do. I am going to use the Packers as a teaser leg because I think it's going to eventually hit 2.5 anyway. So I took them up to 9, and I'll tell you who I'm going to partner with them later, Brady.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to approach it. And it seems like, about the 5th week in a row that my numbers tell me the Packers are the side. But like we talked about earlier, they continue to underperform with what their numbers are telling you they're doing. They continue to find ways to lose games and not cover spreads and what have you. I looked at this one hard. I haven't made a play on it yet, but there's a situation that I really like to go against. And this is the only one I believe on the schedule this year. But from week 10 out, from week 10 through the rest of the regular season, a dome team or a team that plays indoors going to Green Bay has an absolutely awful record against the spread. And again, I say, do trends make sense? Well, it certainly makes sense when week 10 on, when we're just about at Thanksgiving, it's freezing cold at Lambeau Field, and you get a team that plays indoors like the Los Angeles Chargers or the Los Angeles Rams or what have you, and they go in there and they really struggle in the cold weather. That would qualify for the Los Angeles Chargers, but I just can't trust this Packers team. I mean, a lot of those numbers were done with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre at quarterback. So I haven't done anything with this game yet. I'm with you, not wanting to lay points on the road with Los Angeles. And the teaser makes sense there. If this does go to 2.5, which it looks like it very well could, I could understand taking it to 8.5 with Green Bay. But this is another one where, my numbers don't quite jive with my gut. And right now I'm staying away.
That makes sense. And that I think everybody's numbers on the Chargers are just kind of like Ravens-ish in a way. The Packers, you need to punch it in. I think that's if LaFleur is working on anything with them, it's what to do in the red zone because they are just blowing it in the red zone. They're moving the ball down the field. They've got a great running back in Aaron Jones, and they're just not punching it in right now. My numbers actually do say Packers a little bit, but I can see the Chargers winning this by a field goal. The Chargers are good when they're playing good, and when the coach doesn't get in their way. When the coach doesn't get in their way, and when the game's kind of flowing well, and you don't have too much on Herbert, and
They could probably beat anybody in the NFL on any given Sunday, like they say. But they could also probably lose by 30 to any team. I mean, they're very fickle.
My recency numbers have the Chargers, on the way up a little bit. So that's what I'm worried about. But I think that the teaser is a good way to go. Let's move on to the next game. And oh God, do we really have to talk about the Commanders against the Giants?
We don't have to. That one's pretty ugly.
I'm passing because whatever I say might not make.
I'll say this. I haven't bet the game. Probably won't bet the game. I could probably only bet the Giants. And the Giants, in their history, specifically with Daniel Jones, have been very successful against one team on a regular basis, and that is the Washington Commanders.
I'm stuck with Survivor because I can't use the Niners and the Cowboys, and I
don't think I'd go there. I think it's possible Washington could lose.
Sure, but my other one's Buffalo, and they could lose too. So I do like Buffalo in the teaser, and I'll get to that. But I mean, when you're in this position, it's like, do I go coin flip stuff? Do I take the Rams or the Seahawks? It's just like you still kind of veer towards the big spread, even though it might knock a bunch of people out. Unfortunately, the Commanders will never be able to be used again. So if you didn't use them week 1 against Arizona, this is where you're using them. I mean, there's no other place.
So it makes sense.
So the strategy is probably to stay away from them and go to the Bills, because the Bills, no one's going to use them now after last week.
That's a good point as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about this a lot this week, but that's what's the fun about it and everything. And I only have one entry left anyway. In a smaller one, I'm not in the circuit, but I'm in a few. Like I was in a couple smaller ones. I'm just gonna say, my rule is when two bad teams play each other, you're supposed to take the points, but the Giants are absolute snake. I would not shock me if this is a 3-point game. I'd be like,
exactly. Like I say, the Giants have been pretty bad for the last few years, if not more. But one thing they've been good in, and especially when Daniel Jones is in there, if you look at his record, I mean, the only team he consistently beats is Washington. So that's what kind of scares me about this game. You're at rock bottom. You're absolutely buying as low as you can possibly get on the Giants right now. Might be the spot for him this week.
Might be the spot. Let's move on to the next game. We have now the Steelers against the Browns. The Browns are about, pick them -1. We'll call them -1 for the sake of this book by Fred Sports. Total is 33. Wait, is this Army playing Navy? The total 33? Brady, geez, man. I think you're going to do the same thing I am, though, because right now, I know you started talking about it, but I didn't like the Browns with Deshaun Watson kind of banged up with his ankle at -4. But I do like them with any quarterback under 3. It's like, I would have been nicer with PJ Walker, but maybe DTR. DTR was told he was going to start a couple hours before the game, and he played the Ravens, It's like, that was brutal for him. And now you got a full week with him. He was okay at UCLA. I can't imagine that he's that much worse than PJ Brown, but here's all they have to do. Just run the football. Run it with Ford. Run it with Kareem Hunt. The Steelers are down 2 linebackers. Quan Alexander just ripped his ACL. And like you said, Minka Fitzpatrick's not back. This is run the ball, win the game. Please do that. But I don't have a ton of trust in them, but it's a play for me. I played the Browns at the -2 when I thought it was PJ Walker, but I'm okay with it, obviously, at anything under the 3.
I'm not so sure DTR isn't better than PJ Walker. I think he's certainly got a higher ceiling. We know he's much more athletic. He went to high school right here in Las Vegas at Bishop Gorman. Great athlete, was obviously incredibly athletic at UCLA. He's kind of like a young Deshaun Watson who can run all over the field. He can make the throws. He was fantastic in the preseason. And you're right. He gets thrown to the Wolves, a couple hours before game time. Oh, by the way, you're going to take on the Ravens today, kid. Tough situation. He's had the whole week to prepare this time around. Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's value certainly on the Browns here. It's a scenario we've seen 1,000 times when you have that quarterback come out. You see it a lot in contest play where, the Westgate and the Circa lines come out and the game's 6 and all of a sudden the quarterback's gone and it goes down to pick 'em or whatever, and everybody just hammers the side and it goes the other way. Pittsburgh's going to kill him. Deshaun Watson's gone. Nah, I don't think so at all. I think Cleveland is clearly the better team. And, Cleveland wasn't necessarily a team that relied on the ability of their quarterback. It's their defense, it's their running game, it's the line of scrimmage. You could put a PJ Walker in there. You could put a Dorian Thompson Robinson in there and manage the game and do your job and don't turn it over. And we're going to win football games. And I think that's what's going to happen here.
I will say my only worry is their two tackles, Wirfs and Conklin have been out, and TJ Watt could have a field day if they're stupid enough to make him dance around in the pocket. Like if you're going to do passes, 3-step drop out. If you're going to do maybe a rollout play action, which can be stuffed by TJ Watt and others as well, but run the ball, just run it, punt it, run, punt. Maybe you'll break a run or two, and that's all you need. That's why this total is 33. Yeah. So let's hope that they do the right thing in this situation. Titans, Jags.
I think they will. A revenge game as well. We talked about it a little bit earlier, a game that they never should have lost earlier this season.
Yep. I'm sure I was on them too at that time. Titans, Jags -7. I'm actually having an okay NFL year thanks to teasers and totals.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't been great against the spread, but the teasers are keeping me alive and my head above water.
Me too. Jaguars -7, total 40. This is too many points.
It is.
Remember when a lot of people took the Jaguars against the Colts at home, and Colts are terrible, lost their quarterback, and all of a sudden the Jaguars just flat out lose because that's what they do. They're a big favorite here. It was the Texans. It was the Texans. That's when it happened. It was the Texans.
Yeah.
They're a big favorite and lost by double digits. And so the Titans are not a good team. Will Levis is not a good quarterback, but he can kind of make a few throws. But they do have a running game, and they do have a defense. And Trevor Lawrence just gets in trouble too much and makes stupid decisions. And whenever the Titans play the Jaguars, the game is close. I'm going to let you give me your thoughts, and I'm going to pull up some numbers.
I haven't done anything with this game yet, Kiev. My numbers come out clearly on the Titans side here, but I don't quite trust running to the window with that side. It's probably the side I would use for sure, not just because my numbers, but I do believe it is a little bit inflated on the Jacksonville side. I worry about some of the injuries for Tennessee. I worry. I mean, they laid a complete egg last week. 6 points against the Buccaneers.
Off the bye too. That was worrisome.
That shouldn't happen. I don't know if this is total disagreement, but I think Levis is decent. I mean, he's got a really good arm. He's made some terrific throws in just a couple of games. I mean, that throw on Thursday night to DeAndre Hopkins against the Steelers over the middle on 3rd down, that was a heck of a throw right there.
And that's just it. The back door, baby. That's just it.
Yeah. I mean, and he had a chance to win that game at the end. And I thought he was pretty impressive in doing so and made some good attempts at the end zone to try and score. Obviously, it ends up in an interception in the end, but he has some holes on the offensive line, so he's taken some sacks. But I think the future is pretty bright for this kid. From what I've seen is as far as what he's capable of doing, I think he's got some upside, and I think that gives Tennessee a lot better chance than Ryan Tannehill did. You wonder what Jacksonville is going to do as far as responding to pretty much a total embarrassment last week at the hands of the 49ers. Typically, professional athletes in any sport will respond to embarrassment. So again, I've stayed away from this game. My numbers are strong on the Titans. I don't know if I can trust them just yet. They should bounce back as well after last week's performance against Tampa Bay. If I had to bet it, I'd certainly be on the Titans side. Haven't done anything yet.
I mean, both teams were embarrassed, though. If it was
correct,
just one, if it's just one, it'd be different. Yeah. Look at this. The Titans haven't lost by double digits or past 7 points since 2019 of September 19th. I mean, it's been almost like how many games since then? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. 7 games.
Jacksonville.
Yes, and it's been 7 games since that happened. And the Titans also covered a lot of spreads. 4 out of the last 5 they covered. The last 2 they lost, but they lost close games. You remember that Josh Dobbs game last year? right. I was at the
Oh
zoo
yeah.
following this one along, watching it live on the old phone on the stroller, pushing it around, watching the game, and it was like, whoa, seriously, is Jacksonville going to lose this game? And they win it at the end. But still, this is how the Titans play the Jaguars. They play them close. And to be honest with you,
Yeah, division game, obviously, so not surprising to find that is the case between these two teams. You're starting to talk me into running to the window on the Titans here, but no, that's the side I would play, and maybe I'll get there.
My number's 3.5 anyway. So yeah, I have no problem taking them. I actually took a bad number. I took 6.5 early. I thought it'd go more, but with my other value, I'm pretty happy with this week so far anyway. Let's move on to the next game here. Pull up our Betfred odds. Tampa Bay versus the Niners. The Niners are 11.5. Total is 41.5. Now, recency numbers obviously points more towards like the San Francisco, towards Tampa, just because San Francisco had such a bad run here. But, total for the year, I'm still not up to 10.5 at the same time. The problem with Baker Mayfield and this team is that Baker Mayfield's been playing quietly good, and they have no running game.
Right.
But now you're going to a Niners team that just kind of got healthy, got it right after the bye. Went to Jacksonville, I think they're kind of foot on the gas mode. I will say that Rolstad is the official there. He's a good away official. I put the Buccaneers as one of my potential plays, but I also can see how Baker Mayfield gets put in a tough situation with Chase Young and Joey Bosa. Now they're Ohio State guys. They're competing against each other for sacks now on the same team. That was a scary move when that was made. I was like, are you serious? The Niners are just going to get better. Well, they did. And if Baker Mayfield can't throw the ball, they can't run it. And that's where they can get blown out is the pass rush.
I agree.
Cover Evans a little bit. So go ahead. And I wish I would have played. I wish I could get to the window when my numbers say to, but I can't in this one.
Well, I think you certainly open up possibilities for a teaser play here. And I'm talking probably like at least a 7-point, if not a 10-point teaser. A 10-point teaser, which of course you have to use 3 teams, gets you below a field goal on the Niners. I think that's really strong. My numbers came to Tampa Bay here, as the side. I think it came to somewhere between 8 and 10 or something like that in favor of the Niners, but not all the way to 11 or 12 where we're seeing it now. I grew up a 49er fan in the Bay Area. I don't have faith in this team. I loved them last week, probably my play of the year. I thought that situation was absolutely perfect for San Francisco against Jacksonville. Now you're going to make them this large of a favorite, off of that performance. It feels a little bit inflated to me. I could see San Francisco winning this game by 6-7 points, but you're right. Tampa Bay doesn't have a running game. And if the Niners basically shut that down and let this pass rush take over, which I think they're kind of starting to feel themselves after they had a real good time with Jacksonville last week. Now they can kind of get some momentum going. And here's a real good opponent to do it against because you can make this team completely one-dimensional. You're right. Mayfield has been really solid this year, a gutsy player. But if he doesn't have the ability to hand it off or what have you, and the Niners defense can kind of just smother everything, it could get really ugly here. So in a 10-point teaser, I did use it in that fashion. I think you can probably get creative here. Maybe, who knows, money line parlay. You're going to have to pay a lot, obviously. But I wouldn't play it traditional point spread here with San Francisco laying the wood. I know some people that have. I like Miami laying the big number a lot more than I like the Niners doing so. So I think you have to get more into the exotics with this game, but the Niners in some form or fashion are the side for me.
It's a good 10-point teaser week because you can take the Niners and the Cowboys down to below field goal with the Vikings.
And the Dolphins, unfortunately, right? The Vikings. The Dolphins don't make sense because you're not on the other side of the 3. But yeah, there's some big numbers out there this week.
The Vikings and Eagles plus 2.5. You could pick either one of those, or use them both and just cross out the Cowboys on the road if you're scared. So, that's yep. I think it's a good 10-point teaser week. I haven't used one yet this year, but I'm really considering that and. I might be able to get to the window with that one. Let's move on to the next game. We have the New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are -7. The total is 39.5. Now, here's the thing. Now the market's kind of soured on the Bills. I bet you there's not a lot of people laying it with the Bills this week. And this is kind of the point where even though they fired Ken Dorsey, and it's probably not his fault, it's still going to kick them in the butt a little bit. Josh Allen is not going to throw picks. He's going to probably run for a bunch of yards. And that's where the Jets would struggle, is trying to stop a running quarterback. They can stop a lot of other things. I would not take the Bills -7 either, but I am teasing them down to -1 because I do think that if I partner them up, I think they're going to win by 3 to 6 points per here. I think the Jets will have a good enough defense to make it interesting, but they're not going to be a 0 to 4 interception turnover ratio. This is their season right here. This is their season. The Jets are already kind of done. I mean, the Jets record is what, 4 games at 4-6 or something like that. They're at least the Buffalo 6-5. I'm teasing the Buffalo Bills to win.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that at all, but I will say that, this is kind of a rock bottom spot for both teams. Buffalo on national TV on Monday night, all the turnovers and the firing of the coach, and there's a mess going on in Western New York, and then you have a mess in East Rutherford, New Jersey as well. Robert Saleh, being held to the flame, and all the questions about Zach Wilson and this anemic offense. They cut Michael Carter. And I mean, both of these teams are in a little bit of disarray right now, at least, in the public eye. And so what I'm saying is them both being in like the ultimate buy low spots seems like what's happening right now. So, I think you can make a case that, like you said, not a lot of people are going to be laying the 7 with Buffalo. Probably not a lot of people that want to necessarily be on the New York Jets either. I think you can make cases for a lot of different wagers here. The Jets plus the 7 or 7.5 or whatever it is, I think makes sense. We talked about it at the opening of the program. You and I both agreed number one overvalued team is probably the Buffalo Bills. And maybe in this spot, the Jets are a little undervalued. So if I had to, your move with the teaser, I don't have a problem with. I'd probably rather have the Jets plus the points, the full 7 or what have you. But again, no play for me so far in this game.
All right, fair enough. Strategically, everyone's going to be on Washington. Do I go with them and just root for the Giants? I have no idea. So that I have like survivor implications, unfortunately, with this, and I don't want it. I wish I had the Dolphins left, my man. That would have been a much easier week for me. Let's move on to the next game, Seattle versus the Rams. This is like close to pick 'em. Rams +1. Total's 46.5. There's some disagreement back and forth with some sharper people here. I'm disagreeing right now with somebody about it. Before you came on, I was talking. I kind of like the Rams just because, everyone's like, Seattle revenge spot is getting blown out. Seattle couldn't even move the ball against this team. And I don't know what it is, but sometimes coaches just have the numbers of these teams.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And I looked at the history, man, and the history really points towards the Rams here. And I just gotta pull it up here. I think I gotta scroll a little bit more. Here we are. Looking at head to head here, and I'll share my screen. The Rams they won their last 6 games against the spread against the Seahawks. And then the Seahawks won 7 games in a row. And then the Rams won 3 before that. This is going back to October 2009. They have their number, man. It's like,
it seems like every year back and forth, these teams really play. It goes back to the days of Jeff Fisher. He'd go up into Seattle and pull a bunch of special teams, trickery and stuff. And no, it's been a wild series division matchup, obviously, between these two teams. And I hear you loud and clear that there's sharp opinions on both sides of the fence here. I think the Rams make a ton of sense. I talked about Miami going into their bye week struggling. Well, the Rams go into their bye week having lost 3 in a row. We saw what the Niners did going into their bye week, losing 3 in a row, coming out on the other side and just walloping Jacksonville. But I don't expect the Rams to steamroll the Seahawks here. I think this will be a really competitive game. And I'm not going to argue that the Rams are you're looking at a pick 'em game. So it's hard to say.
I didn't bet it. I want to tease the Rams, but I can't find the 1.5 yet. And the books that give me -110. I have a book that gives me -110 teasers at 6 points still.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I do. And I'll tell you later after the show, but that's where I want to do it. But I think it'll get there. I'm just waiting for it. But I do
I think
not
you tease whichever team is the dog, right? That's what
tease
I
the one
did.
and a half. Tease the one and a half.
Correct. I teased Seattle up to plus 7.5 earlier in the week. And I would do the same like you're talking about with the Rams at plus 1.5. You got to get it to the other side of 7. If you have to use a 6.5 point teaser, that's fine, but you have to get it to the other side of 7. And I don't care which team you're on. I think this is going to be a heck of a game. I think the Rams will come out of the bye week with some energy, just like they did in week 1. Seattle is a pretty decent team, but they're always good for a few mistakes, it seems. I think you're dealing with a 1-score game here. And if you're catching 7.5 with either side, I think you're probably looking pretty good.
100%. All right, let's move on to the next game. I think we're getting close to the night games here. We are Vikings at Broncos. Broncos minus 2.5. Total is 42. I think I know where you're going with this, but you have the floor, my man.
Well, you and I kind of alluded to or touched on this game a little bit earlier. I think both of these teams are a little bit of play on teams. And that was certainly not the case earlier in the year with Denver. Even though I still have them rated a couple 3 points, I think 2 points below average. I had them about 3.5 and upgraded them about a point or a 1.5 after that performance on Monday night. Albeit it still wasn't a great performance, but this team has improved quite a bit. I still don't think they're that good. They've been the beneficiary of a lot of turnovers the past couple of weeks. And in Minnesota, have they kind of peaked? Are they due for a slip? I'm not sure. My numbers continue to tell me that they're a play on team as well. So I think this is going to be a really interesting test. And at the end of the day, what did I do? Of course, I teased Minnesota up. So Minnesota up to 8.5. I think you can use them in a 10-point teaser as well. We talked about that, getting them to 12.5. I think that's a really nice spot to be in. This ought to be a really good. I'm looking forward to this game sneakily. Yeah. This is a good contest. And, we talked about it earlier where the drop off, Cousins is better than Joshua Dobbs. Absolutely. But the team hasn't really dropped off. They continue to win ball games. I think this team has an underrated defense. I think their running game's a little bit underrated, but Alexander Madison has been a little bit banged up. We'll check his status before this one starts. Is Justin Jefferson going to come back this week as a Minnesota backer? I hope so. So, and then you deal with, all of a sudden Denver's now in the role of a favorite. Okay, really? Is that, I think it's justified. They've got a big home field advantage there in the elevation and what have you. But I like Minnesota and teaser in this game.
Yeah, I like Minnesota straight up at 2.5.
Good for you.
I have no problem with it. It's did they probably lose Alexander Madison for the week? Yes, but they did sign somebody off the waivers, Myles Gaskin. They still have Ty Chandler. That some people are saying Ty Chandler is better than Alexander Madison too. Now, I don't like the fact that they just lost Jordan Hicks, but what do? They sign Anthony Barr. They bring him back. They're making great moves to make up for some of those woes. And are you really afraid of Denver? No, not really. The Vikings quietly have been playing much better defense, since the last couple of years. That was always their crutch, but they've been quietly playing better defense. I will just love it if Justin Jefferson's off the IR this week, but they still got Jordan Addison. That's been fantastic. They still have KJ Osborne to throw to, and Josh Dobbs is playing with lightning in a bottle himself here. The Vikings are just playing good ball. I like the under a little bit as well. I'm considering the under on this, but I'm playing the Vikings at the 2.5. So that's my play.
Good for you, man. I'm happy to hear that you're taking that approach because I've given myself obviously a little extra comfort there with the teaser, and I've heard some people that are high on Denver, and again, it's what we talked about. I think both of these teams are on the up right now, but I'm not. But I feel very good about, like you and I've talked about, a team that's playing good defense, a team that's got an inspired quarterback, a team that is being very well coached, I believe, right now. Brian Flores is doing a heck of a job. So do I want to lay points with Denver, a team that's still, I don't think, there yet, even though they're on the uptick? No, I like the dog teased up here. I feel good about that.
Me too. Let's move on to the night game. Actually, the Monday night game. Philadelphia Eagles at the Chiefs. And this is the final game. The Chiefs are laying -2.5 and totals 45. So this is all I'm hearing. This is all I'm hearing. Andy Reid off the bye. Chiefs under 3. I mean, you can just keep playing. Has it been true? Yeah.
Those are the 2 points right there. Andy Reid off a bye, Patrick Mahomes laying less than a field goal at home. And you know what? Sometimes that's all you need. My numbers came out. I think my power ratings came to 2. My power ratings came to 2 in favor of Kansas City. When I crunch all the numbers, it comes to Kansas City 2.5. So, nothing really there. In one of the contests that I play early in the week, I took the Eagles plus 3.5. I think that 3 and a hook makes a huge difference on which way you're going to go in this game. And you're never going to find 3.5 in this game. I don't think it might get to 3. I wouldn't be thrilled.
3 once already. It hit 3 once.
Yeah, I did see it hit 3 briefly. I wouldn't be thrilled about taking Philadelphia plus 3, 3.5. That's a whole different ball game. I don't think it's going to get there. Teaser, I think, is real good spot for the Eagles here. 6 point, 10 point, 7 point, whatever you want to do. Obviously, a 6 point gets you to a pretty good number in 8.5. My favorite play with this game, though, Kiev, is the under. I actually grabbed it early at 46.5. I saw this statistic, and I go back to Evan Abrams. He had a couple of gems that I spotted regarding this particular week's card. And he said when 2 teams come into a week, both off of 8 days rest or more, since 2018, the game staying under the total is 101, 47, and 1 or something like that. 68% of the time. Yeah, absolutely. And this year it's 25 and 5, 83%. And it happened twice in week 10. The Niners and the Jaguars, both off of a bye, 8 days rest or more, game stays under. Buffalo and Denver on Monday night, both off of rest, game stays under. Now you throw into the fact primetime unders, 78% this year, Monday night unders, 11 and 1 this year. I mean, it's just this massive snowball of under, trends and situations here going on coming into this game. And again, we go back to this, the thought, at least that I have, is, does it make sense? I think it does make sense with the rest angle, because it's kind of like we see in the Super Bowl or in the early part of the season. We think the defense probably has the advantage. They're more up to speed. They're more in sync than the offense is going to be early on. Out of a bye week, they're kind of feeling each other out here. This is a Super Bowl rematch. They're going to kind of feel each other out here and just jab for a little bit in the first quarter, maybe. I do believe there's a lot of reasons. And then just look at the matchup. You've got a very good Eagles offense going up against a very good Chiefs defense. So that kind of nullifies one another. And then you have a, defense on Philadelphia's side that really has some holes. But you have an offense in Kansas City that is not like what we're used to and sputters often at times. So I think this game has a lot of reason to go under the total here. What Philadelphia should do, we've seen this recipe for success a lot of years in the last 5 years or so during this run of Kansas City being, under Patrick Mahomes, being an absolute Super Bowl contender year in and year out. The one way to beat them, it seems, is to run the football. And Nick Sirianni, I believe we've seen him do that in the past. 2 years ago when he first came on, midway through the season, he changed his tone and he ran the damn football, and they were very successful. They've obviously gone to more of a passing game, but I think in this game you will see more of a run game here. That's always been an Achilles heel for that Chiefs defense. They concentrate on pass rush and coverage this year, and that also leads you to a game staying under the total. So that's my favorite spot in this game. My second favorite would be teasing the Eagles. I think there's something to the Super Bowl revenge and them trying to get one here in the regular season.
Yeah, I'm with you totally. You think you broke it down perfectly. There's nothing else I should add, really. I mean, just Nakobe Dean being put on IR, and he's going to miss this game, and he was the middle linebacker. Obviously, Sean Bradley earlier in the season was put on IR. That's just a little hole where I can see, the Chiefs possibly winning by 3 here, and I think it's a great teaser leg. I'll probably be using this teaser leg as well. And it being that the total, we like the under, we're going to like teaser too, because you're moving up that point spread all the way up past the 7. So 100%. So speaking of teasers, I'm going to give out my refuse to lose teaser. There's one per show, one for NFL show every week. I'm 9-1 and refuse to lose teasers, Brady.
There you go. Good.
I know it's a crazy teaser record. Now I think I'm like 13-5 in all teasers, but I'm 9-1 in this one. And I'm just going to do what I said before. I'm going to take the Packers all the way up to +9. And I'm going to do it with the Bills all the way to -1 for all the reasons that I stated earlier. I think the Packers are good enough to stay in the game. Chargers tend to puking all over themselves. They don't know how to hold a lead. They don't have the mind to hold a lead. And the Bills just it's their season, and they're going to play. If there's 110% in people, that's what they're going to play. And the Jets are just on the road and already beat the Buffalo Bills once. It's a revenge spot. I think they win by a few points. So that's where I'm going.
Hey, team that plays indoors going to Lambeau Field past week 10. Chargers are a lock. Packers are a lock.
Lock to lose. Yeah. I mean, I wish it was the hook, but at the same time, the Packers did destroy my hook last week. But yeah, I'd still bet it again. Obviously, I expect to win 7 out of 10 of these freaking hooks. Yeah, I mean, I'm seriously considering the Packers. I hate contest play pushes, so I'm just not a fan that it's 3. But it wouldn't shock me if they won this game by less, or maybe they win it by they lose by 2 is what I'm trying to say. I'm with you on that. Did you play a teaser to give us this week?
Yeah, sure. I'll go to the 3-team 10-point teaser, and we've kind of touched on it in a few different spots here in our analysis of the card. I'll take San Francisco down to 2.5. I'll take the Eagles up to 12.5 with the Vikings up to 12.5. That'd be a 3-team 10-point teaser for you.
Wonderful. Love it, man. What a great teaser. You got 12.5s on one side. You bring it all the way down to 1.5, 2 on the other. Love it, Brady. Well, man, we love you coming on this show. Really appreciate all your great insights and all your hard work. Where can our listeners get your great information and media?
Yeah, probably the best place to keep up is on Twitter at Las Vegas Golfer. I typically tweet out everything I'm doing there. The articles I write for the PGA Tour, my appearances on Sports Grid. That's where you can find me. I'm on just about every day of the week on Sports Grid. Typically in the evenings. I'll be on tonight at about halftime or so of the Thursday night game. And then again, the articles that come out on PGAtour.com. So golf and football, we're working year round on those 2 sports, Kiev, and you can keep track at Las Vegas Golfer.
All right, wonderful. Make sure you guys check out Brady. Brady, have a wonderful weekend. We'll be texting this weekend. Best of luck on your plays.
Hey, great to catch up with you, Kiev, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it.